Can you believe that one of the most horrifying places of the American slave trade still stands today? Before we get into this powerful story, make sure you like, share this video, subscribe to the channel Black History Stories 13, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. The Old Slave Mart of Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston, the heart of American human trafficking. When most Americans think of the slave trade, they think of plantations. But what they don't realize is that the majority of enslaved Africans who entered the United States passed through one single city, Charleston, South Carolina. By the 1800s, Charleston had become the largest slave trading hub in North America. More than 40% of all enslaved Africans brought to America entered through Charleston's port. Charleston wasn't just a city, it was a machine built on human bodies, human tears, and human profit. The city had dozens of private slave yards, auction houses, and pens. But one stood out above them all: the Ryan's Mart, the Old Slave Mart, the place that still exists today. The market began in 1856, when Charleston city officials passed a law banning outdoor slave auctions. Not because it was immoral, but because they thought it looked bad to tourists. Instead, they moved the auctions indoors. A man named Thomas Ryan, a wealthy alderman and slave trader, took advantage of the new law. He built a massive complex called Ryan's Slave Mart. It was not one building. It was a compound, a slave jail, a morgue, a showroom, examination areas where enslaved people were poked, prodded, and inspected, and the main auction room, the part that still stands today as the Old Slave Mart Museum. What actually happened? This is the part most visitors don't understand. When enslaved Africans or African Americans were brought in, they were treated like livestock. They were weighed. Their teeth were examined. Their muscles were touched. Families were separated deliberately. Their bodies were oiled to make them look healthy. Their ages were sometimes lied about to increase profit. Sometimes the auctioneer would force men to flex their chest or arms. Women were often humiliated, exposed, and judged on their ability to reproduce children who could later be sold. Children were placed on tables to be evaluated. The building you can walk into today, the Old Slave Mart, is the exact room where thousands of these sales took place. You can still feel it. The walls, the floors, the layout, it carries the weight of history. At Ryan's Mart, more than 90% of families were separated. Imagine a mother who survived the Middle Passage, being sold away from her child. Imagine a husband who worked beside his wife for 10 years, suddenly watching her sold to a different plantation hours away. Imagine a child being torn out of their parents' arms on the very floor that still exists today. The grief was so intense that many enslaved people sang songs the night before the sale. Songs of farewell, sorrow, and hope. You were not allowed to cry during the auction because a sad-looking slave sold for less money. The emotional brutality was so deep that some enslaved people said the slave market was worse than the plantation. Wall Street money was involved. Here's what most people don't know. Many of the buyers in Charleston were not plantation owners. They were investors, insurance companies, and wealthy men from northern cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. They treated enslaved people as credit, mortgage property, collateral, business investments. Enslaved people were insured like farm equipment. Banks loaned money for their purchase. Profits were sent back to financial centers. This was not just a Southern economy, it was a national economy. When slavery ended in 1865, the building didn't disappear. The auction house turned into a tenement, a black-owned business, a shop, a meeting space. And eventually in 1938, an incredible transformation happened. A black woman named Miriam Wilson bought it. She turned the former auction space into a private Black history museum decades before the Civil Rights Movement. Her goal was simple. Open quote, "Let the world never forget what happened here." Close quote. She preserved the building at a time when most of America wanted to erase that history. Her bravery is the reason the museum exists today. If you walk inside today, you'll see original auction ads, posters listing the ages, skills, and prices of enslaved people, shackles, bills of sale, first-hand testimonies from enslaved people, maps of the slave trade, the original layout of Ryan's Mart, exhibits explaining the brutality of slave trafficking. But the most powerful part is standing in the room where human beings were once bought and sold. Some visitors say the building feels heavy, as though the past is still sitting in the air. The Old Slave Mart Museum is the only surviving slave auction hall in South Carolina. It's a living reminder that slavery wasn't centuries ago. It ended just 160 years ago. The trauma of family separation still echoes today. America's wealth was built by enslaved Black people whose labor was stolen. Some of the nation's greatest fortunes began on auction blocks like this one. It forces visitors to confront a truth many people want to ignore. This building is not just history. It is a wound that America still carries. Thank you for watching this powerful story. If this history moved you, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Black History Stories 13 on YouTube. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss one of our stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and keep Black history alive.